Hello everyone, and welcome to another beautiful day here at the Waterhole. My name is Amy, and I will be with you for the first half of the show today. And we are starting off here in the beautiful Madikwe Game Reserve, Jamala. We have an elephant with a floppy ear who has come down for a drink, as well as a few of WildEarth. And I think the temperatures are sky high today once again. So as the last few days have been, we might see quite a few animals around the water. As always, I would love to hear from you. So please do know that this is a live and interactive show. So you can send through all your comments and your questions wherever you are watching from. So if you are on YouTube, you can put them into the chat stream. Otherwise, you can use the WildEarth app or on the WildEarth website. Otherwise, you can join the conversation on X using the hashtag WildEarth. Fish and Chips, hello, good to hear from you. You say, I'm going to my watering hole. Coffee time, hello, Amy. Enjoy the coffee, enjoy the watering hole. And I'm glad that you can join us once again today. All right, everyone. Well, as I said, it does look like another very warm day here at the UK, but let's have a look at what the weather is doing across all our locations. Well, everyone, the thoughts I had about the heat have been confirmed. Is absolutely boiling across the whole region today, and I think the next few days, especially I checked the weather forecast for the Greater Kruger area over the next week, and it seems to be a heat wave all round. Okukuyo up to today. So yeah, in Medugbe 37. So I think we will definitely see plenty of animals popping down to the water, especially elephants. And speaking of which, there are a few around. Jenna, hello. You are from the UK and you are asking, we know how elephants keep cool. What do they do when they get cold? Jenna, it's a good question because often, I mean, most of the time we focus on the fact that elephants cool down at the waterfall. They use the water to spray onto their bodies, especially behind the ears where there's lots of blood vessels, and they can cool down their bodies by, swimming and things like that. But on the other hand, what happens when it cools down and it gets cold at night specifically? And what we must remember is that, first of all, the African elephant in particular is what I'm going to focus on since that's the type of elephant that we see here. Um, we don't really find the African elephant in areas where it gets below freezing that often, where there's snow or things like that. It can get very cold, so I'm talking in degrees Celsius, anywhere from 0 to 15 degrees, especially in some of the more inland areas or the high felt areas where these elephants occur, or in game reserves. Um, but even though it gets cold, and it is something that I've actually looked into because I was also fascinated by, what is the dynamic when an elephant might get a little bit chilly. But what we have to remember is how huge an elephant is and how much blood they have inside of them and how long they can retain heat for. And it's part of the reason why we see them cooling down or needing to cool down so regularly, especially in the summer. And they actually really enjoy the cooler and cold weather. And it's not a problem for them. And there's been nothing observed in areas where research has been done. As the temperatures drop, they seem to be very comfortable. And I think it's because of their massive body size and the heat retention that they have within their body. It would really have to be an extreme case of changing climate completely for them to go into, for example, you know, hypothermia or frostbite or something like that to occur in an elephant. It would have to be really like icy weather for an extended period of time where they completely lose that body heat. But of course, we don't see the African elephant naturally occurring in areas like that. So, Jenna, I hope that answers your question.
WildEarth Travel, in association with Wandering Through, is offering some exclusive, privately guided safaris in 2024. James is taking a trip into the famed woodlands of the mysterious White Lion, Ngala Private Game Reserve, in July. Steve and Cedric will lead a safari to Chitwa Chitwa in November. To book, email travel@wildearth.tv or go to the website for more information. We are looking forward to seeing you on safari.
Diane, hello. Thanks so much for sending through your message. You say good morning, Amy. Hope you had a good Valentine's Day. Look forward to lots of Ellie's today. Well, thank you, Diane. I hope you had a beautiful day yesterday as well. And I am too looking forward to seeing plenty of elephants today. I think we are going to, just based on history, on days like today, we should really down to the water. They'll be, you are asking, would they cover the same daily distance on an extremely hot day? Um, Dale, if was limited resource available, and they had to, for example, get to water and there was only one place in the area where they could go, they would then be forced to cover that same distance. But should there be enough feeding or resources around closer to the water so that they don't have to travel so far in the heat of summer, then I'm sure that they would definitely choose to not have to travel so far, especially when it comes to the herds. Elephant bulls are much larger. They have more resistance to the elements, more reserves on their bodies to be able to cope with the heat. But when you look at the little ones, the little babies and things like that, they can easily get exhaustion. And so that is why we sometimes even see the herds having a rest together and the little ones lying down, because sometimes they do have to travel quite a distance. And so those little ones need to rest. Oh wow, a beautiful kudu bull is arriving now as well. I do love the male kudu, I must. They are so regal, would be the word I would use to describe them. Petite, so good to hear from you. You say, hello, Amy. It's 8:15 in the evening for me. So sitting back, watching live at the waterhole and learning a lot from you. Well, Petite, I'm so glad that you've chosen this show to join you this evening. And I do hope that you can relax, maybe with a cup of tea or coffee, and enjoy the rest of your evening with us. Wow, just look how thick that neck is, everybody. Sure. Oh, and now he's decided to move away. Maybe the impalas gave him a bit of a fright and he thinks that there's something he needs to be aware of. Yolanda was just saying to me, it looks like he's judging the elephants for not being as classy as he is. And I do agree with that. He looks like he is got his nose up in the air a little there as he's walking past. While this elephant is full of mud and rubbing his bum on the side of the waterhole. And this is an interesting tussle here between these two bulls. They are quite evenly matched. I do feel the one on the right is slightly larger, just the tusk and the size of the head, but they're both not huge bulls yet. So I wonder, can't gauge exactly how serious this sort of fight is, but it does provide some great entertainment.
Our march to freedom is irreversible.
We raise our hands and we say, we will be free!
Great mass of South Africans denied their humanity.
Well, we have front row seats to an Ellie with an itchy bum, everyone. That was so funny. He's chosen the tiniest little gap to try and fit into to have a bit of a scratch. Miranda, hello. You are asking, are those bulls coming into must? Miranda, it's very difficult for me to say so sitting where I'm sitting and looking through the camera as you. Um, Especially when they've been in mud and they sort of have covered themselves up. One of the sure signs of must, firstly, is the smell. You can really get that scent coming off an elephant bull, which, of course, one of the things that we can't do through the show is actually smell what's going on right there. We can assume some of the smells, but that must smell is sort of like this sweet, sour smell. It's, for me, it's not unpleasant, but it is very distinct, and immediately you can say, oh, that there's an elephant bull in must that's walked here, or something like that. Then the second thing that would be what I would look for is his penile sheath. So that would be dripping urine, and that would say immediately whether that elephant bull is in must. And actually, when they're in full must, it drips so much that his hind legs, the insides of them, are completely wet. But elephant bulls have different stages of must, so they can be going in and coming out of must, and in all those different stages, and there's different things that you can look for around the penile sheath as to how much it's dripping. There's you can also sense how strong that must scent is that they give off when they are in must. I don't think that those two bulls were coming into or going out of must just based on their size. Must is something that we see generally in very mature elephant bulls. Not to say that the younger ones don't go into must, but usually when there is a high density of elephants, that must is suppressed because they can't mate with the females. So they don't come into, and must can last for months at a time. So generally we see the older bulls, or the ones that have just started to let's say 25 years plus, experience the full-blown must, as it were. And so just based on that, there's definitely space for those bulls to be experiencing testosterone and possibly must urges, or that heightened state of testosterone slightly. But as I say, it is actually, I can't say for sure if those two were coming into or going out of must at all. But if we see any sure signs of any bulls in must, then I'll be most definitely will point that out for you. All right, well, let's head over to a new location this morning and see what's happening at Juma. Well, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Goose, as well as your 3 little goslings. Starting off the day today with a bit of feeding. They just are so cute, aren't they? Melissa, hello, and yes, I do agree with you. You say I'm not the biggest fan of Egyptian geese, but watching this family over time has been special until the little ones sound like their parents. For those of you who may not know, Egyptian geese have quite the pair of lungs on them, and they make a rather loud sort of call that they do, and it can be incessant, would probably be the appropriate word to use, and very loud and harsh, and not quite so peaceful as sometimes we hope that the bush will sound. And Egyptian geese are found throughout South Africa, so we often hear them all over the show within cities and sometimes even estates which have, maybe golf estates or things like that. And they can sort of disturb the peace a little bit. Luckily, these little ones won't make that noise for the next few months, but the parents definitely do. And especially now when the males sort of get a bit territorial, they also, compete for mating with females and things like that. And you can often get a whole bunch of them that will start calling, and it can be extremely, extremely loud. Elisa, you ask, do they have a mating ritual or display? They most certainly do. So Egyptian geese have quite a flamboyant, I suppose, would be the word of a display. I'm actually going to read you what it says in the Roberts Bird Guide about their um, their courtship, and it's quite detailed. And then I'll break it down for you. But it says that the female usually leads courtship, calling loudly to solicit male, head and neck extended in his direction. Male responds with asthmatic call. Female also incites male to attack conspecifics of both sexes, behavior related both to territory defense and pair bonding. The male solicits female with ceremonial drinking or swimming high in the water while displaying his undertail covert feathers. Accepted male, the male that's accepted by the female, performs a triumph display, rhythmically craning his neck back and forth with neck feathers erect, accompanied by flicking spread wings. Female may copy the male, uttering enticing calls. Both then point their bills skyward, call loudly, and bow and cross their necks. And I've actually seen that happen very many times. And apparently, it can be between male and female, but also between two males where they both sort of flap their wings out and crane their necks up skywards when they're trying to settle a territorial dispute. So I hope that answers your question, Elisa. That looks like a pied wagtail just came past the screen there. But it has been lovely to check in on these goslings and the geese family. But let's head back over to Jamala. Well, with the heat being what it is, everyone, I think if an animal is not on its way to the water to cool down, it will definitely be trying to find some shade, just like these wildebeest that are lying underneath. I call it the buffalo tree because every time there's always been buffaloes love to lie under there, but today it's the wildebeest tree. These zebras have arrived here, everyone, and are enjoying a peaceful drink for a change at Jamala without being bothered by any eddies. Looks like the second one from our right is very pregnant. You can just see that huge belly all the way from here. Now, zebra don't have a particular breeding season like impalas, but we tend to find that most little ones are born within the summertime just because of the increased grazing material that is around. And zebras are pregnant for 11 months, so just about a year. And so she would have fallen pregnant, I would say, maybe sometime in the beginning of last year. In the first 4 months or so, and she would be quite close to actually having a calf. So we'll have to keep our eyes open in the next month or so to see if we have any new little baby ones arriving around the waterhole to drink. Dale, you are asking if male zebra stay in the lives of their young for a long time. So, yes, Dale, they do. Basically, how it works within zebra social structure is that the male has what we call a harem. So, a successful stallion will have multiple females that are his inverted commas, and he will mate with all of those females, and they will give birth to the young. And that those offspring will stay in that harem until a time where, if they are stallions, they will then seek to move off and form harems of their own. Um, and then if they are females, they may be taken by another stallion to form part of their harem as such. So that's sort of how the social structure works. But that's generally once they're matured. So they will be with their sort of natal harem with the father, the stallion, and the mare together for quite a few years before that happens. But the father doesn't necessarily play any sort of father role. It's very much the mother that's taking care of the little one, but the male provides protection basically of that harem and will defend his young. So Ellen, the zebras are pregnant for 11 months. Sibyl, hello. You are asking what is the difference between a herd and a harem? So a herd is very, we talk about herd of elephants, herd of buffalo, even herd of zebra or giraffe. And that's basically just referring to a mixture of males and females and young all together. The most sort of accurate term for herd, I would say, was a herd of buffalo. you've got bulls, you've got females, you've got their offspring, and they're all mixed together and they stay together. Whereas it's not incorrect to say a herd of zebra, but the more accurate term is a harem, because a harem is a specific word that refers to one or more males with a group of females. And so that is why the correct term in terms of a harem of zebra is when there's a dominant stallion and then his females around him. So that would be a harem. And harems also occur within impalas during the rut or the mating season of impala, which is coming up in April, May time. And there you've got one male, you'll see one male surrounded by many, many, many females, and that's his harem. So that's the difference between a herd and a harem. Right, well, we have enjoyed seeing the zebra here at Jamala, everybody, but let's head back over to Juma for some birding. Oh, beautiful, everyone. We have a pair of lilac-breasted rollers here, it looks like. I wonder if they are nesting in this tree. Rollers, just like starlings that we've often seen around here at Juma, nest in hollow cavities of trees. So I wouldn't be surprised if these two are mating pair that have chicks or eggs around this particular tree. Nadine, hello. You're asking if juvenile lilac-breasted rollers have those colors. Nadine, that is a very, very good question, I must say. It's not something that I'm just thinking about if I have seen a juvenile lilac-breasted roller. when they are still little, of course, they're still in the nest. I've seen rollers going in with food to, feed the little ones, but I actually haven't seen them of what exact color they are. I think by the time they come out of the nest, they look very much like lilac-breasted roller that we know. So I'm just going to have to check that for you, Nadine. So Nadine, I've just checked here on my bird guide just to make sure, and they say that the immature is as the adult. The juvenile is also as the adult, but just duller. So they've still got the same coloration differences, the lilac on the breast, the beautiful azure blue on the feathers, that bright turquoise and dark blue, but it's just not as bright yet. So I have actually, now that I've read that, noticed that sometimes we do see less bright or less striking lilac-breasted rhodus, and you do sort of wonder, oh, why is that one not as bright as the others? But that would be a juvenile. So, and sometimes they are a little bit more slender. They're not quite as big as a fully grown one. And so, yeah, still the same colors, like they say, as the adult, but can be slightly duller in color, not as brilliant.
We all know the struggle of finding the perfect gift. But what if you could give them an unforgettable experience? Something truly extraordinary. Introducing Nature Eye. Fly a real drone remotely at iconic locations, witnessing the beauty of nature like never before. Sign up to be an explorer and you could win one of these experiences yourself. Visit natureeye.com today.
Major Long Tom, hello. You have asked a really good question, actually. And so we're going to chat about colors in birds a little bit now. And you say, when they say birds only get colors from their diet, and then there's also melanin and iridescence, how true is this? And when would this diet influence their coloration? So it is true, Major Long Tom. And the colors that birds can produce themselves is melanin, so your darker colors. The other colors have to do with the structure of the actual feather. So it's got to do with crystals and air pockets that reflect certain ways when the sun hits them. And those are, for example, starlings, but also on these rollers, some of that very bright blue that we see. And then we get what we call carotenoids. As the name suggests, with the word carrot being in there, it has to do with oranges, yellows, and reds. And that comes from a bird's diet. And they have a special ability that is able to actually absorb the carotenoids from the food that they eat and convert that into the color that you see on the birds. And that is why certain birds, you have these beautiful reds and oranges and yellows, and that actually comes from their diet. Well, I just heard one of the hippos calling from the water. It really is one of my personal favorite sounds out here when you hear that deep grunt of a hippo. seem to be quite windy today here in Juma. Not something I initially noticed, but we can see the trees are blowing quite strongly today. Harry, hello. You say it looks like a scorching day in Juma, and you would be correct. Cape Town, however, finally has a cool day with some rain, and it is such a relief from the heat and humidity. I am longing for some rain, Harry, really. But I think we are in for a week at least of serious heat here in the Lowveld, where I live and also where Juma is in this area. So I'm very much looking forward to, hopefully, fingers crossed, that the heat will break eventually with a nice big storm or just a downpour of rain. It's going to be a wonderful day when that eventually happens. All right, everyone. Well, there is another location that we are going to go ahead to and say hello to today, and that is Opakuyo. Well, everyone, this scene never gets old, I must say. I haven't been here too much recently, just because there's been so much action happening elsewhere. But it is wonderful to see Okukuyo again. There are a few spring back around there, just drinking on the right-hand side of the waterhole. And it is a high of 40 degrees Celsius today. I think that's well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, if I'm not mistaken. And it just shows how hot it is. So, like I said, if the animals aren't making their way down to cool off today, they are definitely seeking out some dense shade. Baptiste, you're asking if I have any plans to be back at Juma soon. Baptiste, I will be there next month, so keep an eye out, and we'll see you all in March from Juma, so I'm looking forward to being back there then.
Good afternoon and welcome to WildEarth's Bush Hub here in the Western Kruger. My name is James Henry, Gerrit is on camera, and over the next 30 minutes we're going to look at the highlights that took place in the field over the last 24 hours. We'll have a look at yesterday afternoon's sunset safari, this morning's sunrise safari, with an eye to planning this afternoon's activities in the field. This is On Safari.
always interesting to take a moment to listen to the sounds around here as well. I can hear some European bee eaters. One of my favorite calls, I must say, I've been asked a few times about my favorite bird calls when we do a bit of birding. Have I ever decided on an answer? It has taken a while. There are a few that fall into the category of favorite, but my number one is the gorgeous bushshrike. Anyone who wants to hear that call, we may be lucky to hear it around during the African show if we head off to Tembe at all. That's an area where we do find it more commonly, but it has a beautiful call. And it is a beautiful bird, hence the name gorgeous bushshrike. But European bee eater was also one of my favorites because you always hear them calling when they fly over your head, and because they're migratory, is the name. We only hear them in the summertime, and around October or so, we hear the first ones back in South Africa, and it's always an exciting time to listen out. And you hear the call last year, sorry, we're 2024 now. Last year hearing it, and it's familiar, but what is that? I haven't heard it for a while, and then it clicks and you realize that the bee eaters are back. I'm also starting to see quite a lot more greenery around here at Okukuyo for the first time. I'm not exactly sure what shrub this is that is growing, but all over here, as well as a little bit further back. You can see these little pops of green around. Not so much a grass, it looks like possibly a bit of a wildflower or small fork. At least there is a little bit of a breeze around the Okukuyo. I can't imagine when there's absolutely no movement of air. It must just be incredibly hot. But this particular tree, we often see some birdies around. And I also see some movement on the horizon there, very far away, but it does look like animals are slowly going to make their way across all these rocky plains to get to the water. I do apologize if you can hear any voices in the background, everyone. We are often guests here at Okukuyo, and sometimes we do pick up when they're talking. Alright, everyone, it was so cool to spend some time in Namibia. I have missed it, but let's get back over to Jamala. although it is slightly quieter here as well. But there is an elephant just slowly cooling off. A few impala around. I think the wildebeest are still resting in the shade under the tree. And in a few minutes, well, actually quite a few minutes time, and at 12:30, we are going to be in Africa, just to give you all a heads up about that. Nancy, hello. You asked me if the birth of elephants is regulated in any way so that there are not too many elephants in a small area. Nancy, every reserve will have their own policies and procedures when it comes to that, but good conservation management would suggest that there should be, like you say, some sort of regulation. The way they choose to do that is up to that particular conservation manager of that reserve, but it is important that a regulation does happen, and it's something that we talk about quite often on the show, and it does come up quite often in terms of elephant management, because elephants are amazing and we love them so much for so many reasons, but they have a massive impact on the environment where they live. And so because of that impact, their numbers can't be uncontrolled, especially if we are controlling the area in which they can live. So every area will have a particular carrying capacity for all animal species, and that capacity is worked out by scientists and conservation experts, depending on the load volume in terms of what food is available, and different seasons and things like that, as well as resources, including food being a big one for elephants, of course, and availability of water. And the biomass for that region will then dictate how many elephants are, or should, let me say, should be allowed to occur in an area. And one must always err on the side of being prudent in that number. And there are different ways that reserves choose to do that, especially on smaller reserves. The idea or the option of contraception can be a great one for female elephants, especially when the herd is of a particular size. That herd size can be managed. They know exactly the number of females. They can monitor how many are giving birth. They can inject them with contraception. That can be, although extremely expensive to some degree, it can be affordable for a smaller number. So that would be, Nancy, probably one of the most effective ways to make sure that elephant numbers are regulated birth-wise on smaller reserves.
We We all know the struggle of finding the perfect gift. But what if you could give them an unforgettable experience? Something truly extraordinary. Introducing Nature Eye. Fly a real drone remotely at iconic locations, witnessing the beauty of nature like never before. Sign up to be an explorer and you could win one of these experiences yourself. Visit natureeye.com today.
This elephant bull has been here since the beginning of the show, everyone. And I can recognize him from that floppy ear that we can see bent forward like that. Rosie, hello, you're from the USA, and you say, good afternoon, Amy. The elephants look so sad. They need rain at Jamala. Well, I'm not sure about whether they are sad or not, Rosie, but I do agree with you that rain is always welcomed, and it has gotten quite dry here. We can see that in the coloration of the vegetation around the waterhole. And also the grass particularly has gotten very dry. It was at one stage so green here, but it is short lasted in Madikwe where it is so hot, so they are in need of rain. I think Rosie, this elephant's looking maybe a little bit sad just because he's resting at the moment and taking time to not do very much of anything. Although if I was him, I would move into the lovely shade of a tree that's not too far away. Now, everyone, in a few minutes' time, we are going to be introducing Afrikaans to join the show. So if you are watching on YouTube, please make sure that you hop on over to either the WildEarth app or the website where you can continue watching. Otherwise, if you're in the UK, you can watch on Freeview, or in South Africa on DSTV channel 183. You can hear a few of the red-faced mouse birds around. There's also speckled pigeons calling, some starlings as well. I wonder where the Egyptian geese. I see the one, but I know the chicks must be around somewhere. Maybe they're also just finding some shade on the heat of today. Right, everyone, well, it is that time. Let's get ready to have African join the show, and I'll chat to you in a little bit.